Hello super users, so today is just an update video. If you're looking for a normal tutorial, feel free to skip and watch the next video. Unless you're thinking about upgrading to Big Sur, because Finale released a statement on that, which I'm going to cover. But there are some things that I've noticed since upgrading to Big Sur 4 weeks ago that Finale didn't mention in their blog post. But if that's all you're looking for, timestamps for everything is in the description, so you can just skip to wherever you want to go to. Now, if you're new here, about every 3 to 6 months, I usually do an announcement video just to keep all of you updated on what's going on in the future of the channel. And now, given that there's like 1,500 of you, probably I think about 800 of you have not subscribed since I last did an announcement video, which is really, really cool and awesome, and I really do appreciate it a lot. And the channel is also at 97,000 views. Like, I think exactly 1 week ago, we were just at like 93,000 views because I'm preparing a video for when we finally reach 100,000 views. And to think that just in the last week, there's been 3,000 to 4,000 views on this channel. That is amazing. So what are we going over this week? First, we're going to go over Big Sur compatibility. Then we're going to go to some transparency stuff. And then we're going to talk about some upcoming projects that I'm working on right now that hopefully in the next few months you should be seeing. And then finally, future videos on this channel, what they are going to be like. Because I am changing things behind the scenes of how I'm creating videos. So let's talk about Finale on Big Sur. On Friday, Make Music released an announcement basically sharing that they've only really recognized 2 bugs with Finale on Big Sur. I'm going to talk about those here, but there are a couple more that I have found that when talking back and forth with Finale, they have not been able to replicate. It might just be something that's on my computer, or it might be something that you should really know about, so I want to share that with you today. And I am currently on an Intel laptop, so I can't comment on Finale on any of the M1 chips. The little arrow that toggles the expansion of the playback controls is visually hidden. You can see I can click it and it opens, but it is visually hidden whenever you're not using it. The second bug that they pointed out is that if you go over to your expression selection dialog box, there's a little text overflow right here. Again, that seems to be purely cosmetic, doesn't impact functionality. But 2 of the things that I've noticed and have not been able to resolve on my computer actually do affect functionality. The first one being is that if you use JW Change, specifically if you use the JW Change sequence editor, clicking this button for me typically crashes Finale. So if you rely on JW Change's sequence editor, it might be best to not upgrade. The other thing is a problem if you export music typically to music XML. Like, as you can see right now, the time signatures, they look fine, they're vertically aligned correctly. Now I'm just going to export this to music XML real quickly. And now I'm going to go reopen that music XML file. Let's go to here and open it up. You'll notice Finale seems to vertically position these time signatures incorrectly when opening exported music XML file. And this has happened on literally every document I've tried on my computer, including many of Finale's default templates, document styles, and all that fun stuff. Literally every single document does this. With that said, Make Music has not been able to replicate this bug, so it might just be happening on my computer. So if Music XML is important to you, you may wish to not upgrade to Big Sur. Other than that, everything seems to be working properly on Big Sur, including, I know a lot of people had potential worries about JW scripts and all the JW plugins, even the TG tools. Let's say TG tools seem to be working for me. Pretty much everything else seems to be functioning correctly. In short, you should be able to upgrade to Big Sur. With that said, again, there's been a few things that I've found that other people can't replicate. So you may have issues, but all in all, it's working very, very, very well. So now we're quickly on to the topic of transparency. Because you may or may not have noticed, but on my personal website, I recently updated it to add a bunch of core values that I really think we should strive for. And one of them is being open and transparent. I realized a while back in a Q&A I talked about why I haven't made videos in a month, month and a half, maybe 2 months at that point. Basically said it came down to personal health problems. I realized because it affected more than the videos, I probably should have been more open and transparent about it. And especially since like your actions are your real values, not your words, that's what I want to take some time real quickly to address. And for me, transparency is not just being honest and telling the truth. It's not just letting things pass through the filter that we shared through the world. A lot of people always tell the truth, but they'll only tell the good and the neutral things. And then they'll hide the bad things because they don't want other people to see that. And for me, this is not true transparency because at best it's misleading, at worst it's outright lying by omission. So for those of you who are curious, this is actually what happened for me in July. First of all, it started by just basically doing way too much, taking on way too many commitments, taking on really big projects, and overpromising on pretty much everything I was doing. And well, as you might be able to guess, that resulted in basically I couldn't finish everything I set out to do. As a result, I kept getting further and further and further and further and further behind, and that ultimately led up to really extreme burnout that lasted for like a month and a half. On top of this, I think I got physically sick. I might be misremembering that. But then it's like, okay, then I can't work, and now I'm getting further behind, which just perpetuates the entire thing. And so basically, to get back into getting things done again, first thing was cutting down the number of things I did. Not necessarily the size of the projects I was working on, just the absolute number. That way I could really focus on one project at a time until it really was either completed or we achieved a really large milestone. Basically, so it no longer felt like I was working every single day, like 10 to 12 hours a day, and not accomplishing anything. Unfortunately, just with how it's happened in the last 4 or 5 months or so, in an effort to cut down on the number of things I did and really focus on one project, it did mean some things like I had to create fewer videos, because every time I made a video, it stopped what I was currently working on, which meant then I was working on something and had this unfinished project in the background. It also meant slower communication, because simply doing things like checking email, checking text messages, checking things on Facebook, those take time out of the day and interrupt the day of whatever I want to work on. It also meant that I have missed a few replies from people. I'm sorry if that's you. I do have a record of it. I will eventually reply. And part of the reason for that is that even past attempts of even sharing this have resulted in either prolonging the burnout or like having a few days of going back to the burnout. This is probably the first time in many months that I've actually been able to really openly share this to everyone and not really have the impending feeling that, oh, I'm not completing anything. With that said, here are some of the things I have been working on that I think you're really, really going to like. And some of these I've literally been working on for 3 or 4 months now straight. And typically, at least whenever I work on something for that long, the final product ends up being really, really, really good. So the first one is Parts and Score. Parts and Score is getting a ton of updates. Don't want to turn this into an ad for that. There'll be an announcement probably later this week with a lot more details on that. The second one is the Keyboard Maestro course. Now, some of you may remember that I created a course back in April, I think. Maybe it was May. That was all about using Keyboard Maestro in Finale. Now, those of you who have gone through the course have really liked it and have really found it useful. Unfortunately, not a lot of you bought it, and part of that might just be that I haven't really been announcing it because I don't really like to advertise a ton, and part of it might just be that you don't really see the value that the course had until you actually go through it. So what I'm going to do with this is sometime early next year, probably in like February, I'm just going to release it for free on this YouTube channel for all of you to enjoy. That's like 2.5 hours of solid, no fluff content. And the only reason why it's going to take that long is that there's a couple things I want to refilm, and I have to finish up a couple things working on Parts and Score before I can get to that course. Another thing is I've been thinking for probably about 9 to 12 months now on creating a new channel. Don't really want to share a ton about it now, other than just knowing, hey, it's out there. And I think it's going to be really, really, really interesting to watch. The other reason is I don't really want to overpromise and underdeliver like I had before. That really caused a burnout. I'd rather, right now, underpromise and overdeliver and just keep you in the loop of what's happening. The last thing is if there's a mystery thing I've been working on, again, don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. And I'm still trying to figure out a couple of the technical details for that, but I think you're really going to like it if it ever comes out. The last thing is really to talk about the future videos on this channel. And I'm bringing this up mainly because there are a lot of videos I want to create. Many of them you asked for. Like, I've only started keeping track of video requests about 2 weeks ago, and these are the people that requested videos after just the first week, and I haven't checked the YouTube comments in about a week, so this list will probably double. And I just wanted to show you this because, yes, I actually am keeping track of every single topic that you suggest, and that way I know in the future I will eventually make it. And on top of this, I'm probably going to do mainly 3 types of videos in the future. 1, going down through all this list of things that all of you really, really want. 2nd, there are several old videos that I just want to update because if you actually go back and listen to them, they're either very rambly or the sound quality is just terrible or sometimes the editing is bad or sometimes it just made flat out mistakes. So that's the kind of content that's going to come in the future. Also on top of that, I am just changing the way I'm making videos. Behind the scenes, you shouldn't notice a huge difference, but if you notice that there's a slight drop off in quality, that's probably just because I'm still testing new programs and new softwares to try to make this process much, much faster than it typically is. Because if I can cut down the time it takes to create these videos by half, it means I can make more videos for you. So anyways, that's it for today. Happy holidays. If you want a video about the holiday season, check out my animated Christmas tree and finale that I made last year. Many people seem to really like it.